Welcome to Gameonysus Weekly, your one-stop shop for video game news, keeping up with the biggest stories so you don't have to. I'm your host, Edwin Garcia, and today we're talking about PlayStation's acquisitions, indie drama, and Xbox cloud gaming now being available everywhere. All these stories and so much more on today's episode. Starting with PlayStation welcoming Housemarque to the PlayStation family. This news was highlighted on the PlayStation blog, in which the co-founder and managing director of Housemarque had this to say. Today is a big day for Housemarque, and it has been over 26 years in the making. Our strong partnership with Sony Interactive Entertainment started with Super Stardust HD on PS3, and since then we have made arcade-inspired games for all of the PlayStation platforms. With Returnal for PS5, our most recent release, our biggest foray into third-person action gaming solidified our voice and brand in the industry as delivering unique and quality player experiences. We are so excited to finally join the PlayStation Studios family. This gives our studio a clear future and a stable opportunity to continue delivering on gameplay-centric approaches while still experimenting with new methods of narrative delivery and pushing the boundaries of this modern art form. Locally, here in Helsinki, this also means that we will officially expand the PlayStation family to a growing industry hub and secure the legacy of the oldest game studio in Finland. Finally, what does this mean for our fans? We at Housemarque are gamers, and we have grown from the need to perfect and tinker with facets of games that we found most interesting. We are also not known for shying away from running our own course and trying out new combinations. With the backing of SIE and its family of studios supporting us, we can truly grow into our place in the industry and show what Housemarque can create with no limitations. We can't wait to show everyone what will be in store in the upcoming years, and we hope to usher in more lasting memories and exhilarating titles for the next quarter century and beyond. Like a lot of Sony's acquisitions, this is one of those ones where I see this and go, yep, that makes sense, or, oh yeah, I forgot they didn't have them already. It just seems totally in line with what they've been doing, and it makes sense with Returnal having been like the marquee title for the PS5, showing off the power of the PS5. Personally, I was a fan of Returnal. I thought it was a really wonderful game. Looking forward to spending more time with it. And yeah, I think this just makes a lot of sense for the team, and it sounds like it's great for Housemarque, and hopefully this means that we'll see more interesting stuff from them as time goes on. That's always my hope for whenever these acquisitions happen. That is just totally to the benefit of that studio and the work that they want to create. And the acquisitions continue with PlayStation also acquiring Nixxes. Herman Hulst posted up on Twitter, excited to announce that the talented Dutch studio Nixxes Software will be joining PlayStation Studios. It's a real pleasure to welcome a team with such deep technical expertise and vast experience to the PlayStation family. Huge congrats to everyone. And personally, I wasn't particularly familiar with this studio. It didn't really ring many bells for me, but it makes sense when you realize that they are known for specializing in PC ports, which is something that Sony and PlayStation is very much looking to do with their titles moving forward. I think definitely can expect more of that, both from the fact that we've been told that we can expect more from that, and moves like this show that they are backing that both financially and in the way they're shaping their studios. And another piece falls into the puzzle of PlayStation's ideology moving forward and sort of what they've already been doing, where they have, the Housemarque acquisition was very much speaking to new titles and creating franchises that people love and just creating those marquee fandoms for PlayStation fans. And this other acquisition is okay, now we're beefing up the PC ports and all of that stuff. But not all things are great in the world of PlayStation, as a bunch of drama unfolded as folks spoke up about what it's like to work with PlayStation as an indie studio. And spoilers, it's not good. It's not good. I would even go as far as to say actively bad compared to the competitors. So let's kick it off with how this all started. So before we get to the articles that contextualize and do additional research and interviewing and kind of shaping out the story to be more than just a Twitter thread, let's first start with the Twitter thread. And for this, we go to a thread by Ian Gardner, who is the co-founder of Neo Doctrine, which is a video game publisher. So here's what that thread entailed. It starts off with, okay, I'm mad enough to burn some bridges, because honestly, what's the point of a bridge that I'm not allowed to cross? So here's a thread about Platform X. I will not be defining Platform X, but it's the operator of a very successful console and does not have Game Pass. Platform X gives developers no ability to manage their games. In order to get promotion, you must jump through hoops, beg and plead for any level of promotion, and a blog is not as good as they think it is. If Platform X doesn't like your game, no fanfare, no feature, no love. There is nothing you can do to fix this. Wishlists have no effect, so all your personal marketing means nothing to Platform X. All that matters is their evaluation. How is this evaluation done? Dunno. They don't share that, nor will they share the value they ascribe to my game. So before you launch, you need to 1, develop the game for Platform X, 2, get through their incredibly difficult lot check spread over 3 generations of backend software, 3, submit a Platform X specific trailer, 4, write a Platform X blog, 5, submit multiple forms of social media. Oh, for 3 and 4, you need to go through an account manager. When asked how to get an account manager, we were told, I'm not sure, they're assigned by resources. And as we now know, there's no way to know what resource level you have been assigned. By the way, you cannot even do a launch discount without their approval and is, quote, very limited. That's right, you can't do the thing that every other platform does, meaning that Platform X owners will always get the worst deal. Oh, but don't worry, there is a way to guarantee you get featured. All you need to do is spend a very reasonable minimum of $25,000 USD to get featured. Oh, and then 30% of your subsequent earnings. Bargain. Now when your game is on the platform, likely without any support from Platform X, you may think, no problem, I can sync up discounts on Platform X with Steam and others. Wrong. Discounts are invite only, and invites are also very limited. It's been literal years since we could put a title of ours in discount, and I spoke to some very popular devs today and they had the same experience. So even if your game does well at launch and thrives on other platforms, you may still never be invited. Why? Who knows? In conclusion, Platform X is super successful and awesome hardware, but their backend and process is straight out of early 2000s. I have no idea how to succeed on this platform and they won't tell me. Even if I do succeed, they may screw me anyway. So for any gamers who have wandered in here, next time you're unhappy about your game never being discounted on Platform X or a game you want not launching on Platform X, please go and complain to Platform X. Now let's pull for some articles, starting with Kotaku, which writes, PlayStation is hard to work with, devs say. While Microsoft and Nintendo are far from perfect, Sony makes their lives most difficult. This comes from John Walker, again, over at Kotaku. They spoke to multiple independent developers and publishers that were expressing similar frustrations, I believe all of whom remained anonymous, with responses like, oh yeah, so there's Nintendo who supports you, then Microsoft who supports you, and then there is Sony who supports its own AAA machine and gives a fuck about everyone else. Sony does not understand what indie means. An independent publisher tells me under the condition of anonymity via Twitter DMs. Not at all. For them, indie is something in the lower million budgets. No platform is great, but Sony's particularly terrible, says another publisher to me via Discord. They know it too. They've had a problem for a long time, and they've been telling devs they had a problem for a long time, but they've just never fixed anything, so the problem persists. We get people every week saying, saw your game on an Xbox dashboard today, a publisher of a smaller indie title tells me. The Xbox UI feels like a mess, but in reality, it's actually kind of interesting that they have so many different places and spaces to feature games. Meanwhile, on Switch, we're told, without paying for featuring, there are spots on the eShop you will appear without paying. New releases, great deals, all those kinds of lists. And they will put new releases and decent discounts into the Discover tab too. The article also pulls in people like Matthew Wright of Whitethorn Games, who published a pie chart showing the percentage of sales across consoles, with Switch making up 60%, Xbox 30%, Steam 7, and PlayStation 3. We also have some fantastic reporting from Rebecca Valentine over at IGN, who writes why indie publishers are fed up with PlayStation. Multiple publishers speak on social media and directly to IGN about Sony's lack of communication, sale restrictions, and the struggle of indie games to get noticed on its platform. And this really helps to shine some more light on just sort of the situation, different people's perspectives on it. Valentine writes, David Logan, CEO of Acapulco Games, offered an explanation for at least some of the frustrating processes those I spoke to mentioned. He told me that the main reason Sony's processes for game submissions were more involved than others had to do with submitting products based on region, something the company had done throughout the PS4 era. So for worldwide launches, games go through separate submission processes for Sony America, Europe, Japan, Asia, with Japan and Asia having their own portals and processes that require translation from Japanese to move through. In 2020, he continued, Sony had begun working towards streamlining all of this, but movement has been slow and documentation is often an update or two behind. Quote, parts of the process change on an almost weekly basis, and it oftentimes needs to involve multiple reps, support tickets, and parts on the back end, which is still split into different pipelines to make movement on specific issues. We've been blocked by Sony directly on things like updating ratings, terminology usage, trophy visibility, and patch review, all within the last few months. However, my team does recognize the active changes and streamlining Sony is heading towards, though there are instances where we wish it was similar to the pipeline we had grown accustomed to over the past few years. One developer who self-publishes and wishes to remain anonymous said that in multiple years of working with Sony, their relationship had always felt like a, quote, one-way partnership. I felt like if you weren't the big names, you were just there plugging away with minimal support until you eventually shipped your title. Best way I can put it is that I was thrown to the wolves and told, survive, which I did by trial and error every day. Valentine continues writing, when I asked what platform holders could do to improve the ability of publishers and developers to get visibility for smaller games, Logan had a few suggestions. Being more transparent about the process to be considered for opportunities and what thresholds need to be reached, creating more opportunities for smaller titles to be featured in. Right now, many initiatives exist only for AAA titles, creating a more indie-focused branch on their platform, more financing for porting, and generally cleaner, better documented pipelines. It often feels that the rich are getting richer while the smaller titles struggle to survive. Distributors will say they're supporting indie games, but what they often do is promote the successful indie games. 99.9% of indie games are not Hollow Knight or Binding of Isaac, and those games really are in their own tier. I feel we need to continue advocating for supporting indie games, and not just any indie games, but the low and mid-tier indie games that can benefit from the money the most. And again, I encourage y'all to read those articles in their entirety, as well as like a bunch of other articles that have come out across the internet about this issue. But yeah, for me, reading these stories was really eye-opening, like on a personal level, because I think a lot of times I do sort of have too much of like a rose-colored look at how indies are treated across platforms. And I just sort of, I think a lot of times I defaulted to assuming that, like PlayStation totally supports indies. They have like games on PS Plus that are indie games, and they like highlight indie games, and like Shuhei Yoshida's great, and like all those things can still be true while there are other issues at play, especially like less, I guess, I don't want to say interesting issues because it sounds like I'm acting like these things aren't intriguing or worth paying attention to, but the kind of glossier surface level stuff is what we normally see, but we're not going to like know about the ins and outs of like the documentation pipeline. And even in these stories, we're not necessarily finding out how the intricacies of how those processes are done, also because maybe they aren't allowed to disclose certain processes, but it really just goes to show that like support for indies means so much more than those one-off things or the indies that we do see. It's about what we don't see and why we don't see those games, and how developers aren't being supported, especially in comparison to, I think, the competition. Again, like this is a competitive space and we are always making these comparisons, and that goes for the developers as well when it comes to where they put their games and where they can sell their games and where they can find success with their games. And personally, I've tried to look through the PlayStation Store for stuff, and I have struggled to really feel like I'm discovering games on that platform. I do feel like of all the three major ones, PlayStation is the one where I discover new titles the least amount of times, and even not just like new titles like, oh, this came out this year, but just like have new experiences or have unexpected experiences. Meanwhile, like I'm browsing like Game Pass all the time, I'm searching the eShop all the time. So I just really hope that we see more of an indie focus, like an active indie focus on the storefront and through events as well. There's ID at Xbox, there's like the Nintendo Indie World Showcases that happen, but there's not really that same kind of energy given to PlayStation. Like there is the iconic like, oh, the indie sizzle reel that PlayStation's going to throw out, but we don't really get something more in depth. And I think them sort of looking at what's going on with their competitors and also looking at what kind of needs these indie developers have and catering to that will go a long way for pushing indies on the platform. And it's hard to know like how financially viable that is compared to their other stuff. It does feel like Sony is probably more so putting the energy into places that generate more for them, but that doesn't mean that that's gonna help push the medium and have all these other things going for it. And indies are like a big deal, and there are indies that end up popping out over the years and becoming like very mainstreamed because they are those hit titles that don't come across like crazy often, but when they do, they really do become like a cultural moment. And being able to have those experiences on PlayStation is important for the brand and the brand identity, and for fans and for developers, of course. So yeah, I just hope to see improvements, but I mean, I don't know, like I didn't read the entirety of Rebecca's article here on the show, but she certainly spoke to developers, many of whom were anonymous as well, who were not as optimistic about it, and kind of just like, I don't know if this is ever really gonna be improved. And I think that's totally a valid way to feel. And even the thread that kicked this off, right, it came from a point of frustration. It came from feeling like just like you can't break through this barrier, and that sucks. That really does. And I just want to shout out that person for actually posting up that thread and getting that conversation started and putting it in like the public eye, and informing me and so many other content creators and journalists and gamers and just everybody about what the situation is like and what improvements need to be made. Hopefully that does put pressure and help get those things fixed. Shifting gears into Xbox cloud gaming is now everywhere. This was highlighted on the Xbox News website, which reads Xbox cloud gaming now running on Xbox Series X, expanded PC and Apple device availability. So if you're a member or want to become a member, you just go to xbox.com/play on Microsoft Edge, Chrome, or Safari on your PC or mobile device, and you can start playing hundreds of games from the Xbox Game Pass library, just like that. It also mentions, as we bring games to more devices, we're also evolving how you can play your games. Today, about 1 in 6 players who play from the cloud are exclusively using custom touch controls that are enabled for more than 50 games. One I personally love is Minecraft Dungeons. And of course, you can also play games from the cloud using a compatible Xbox wireless controller or one of the many supported controllers and mobile gaming accessories, including the all-new Backbone One for iOS. So there you go, and I think it's finally going to be my time to try Xbox Cloud Gaming, because I do feel like there was I don't want to say this is like the Switch killer, because that's kind of ridiculous sounding and very like click headliney or whatever, but I do think there's something really cool about being able to game on the go and to like, I always jokingly dream about, if you just put Xbox Game Pass on Switch and it'd be like the best thing ever, but what if we could just already do this kind of thing with our phone and with our tablets? Like, why not? And as an Apple user, like, I'm ready to give this a try and see if this really is like a viable, not necessarily even the future of gaming, but like an adjacent and equally, feasible and viable way to game as like your main device. Like, if this could really be a thing. So I'm excited to check it out, and definitely let me know if y'all have spent time with Xbox Cloud Gaming, and if so, how you like the experience. And for more things to get excited about, let's talk about how an ex-BioWare boss announced a new studio and new IP. For this, we head over to Eurogamer, in which Tom Phillips writes, Casey Hudson, former boss of BioWare and director of the Mass Effect trilogy, has detailed what he's up to next. Writing on Twitter last night, Hudson announced that he had formed a new development outfit named Humanoid Studios and begun recruitment for a number of roles. I've been working with some colleagues on something new, and I wish I could tell you all about it, Hudson wrote. Today we're announcing a new independent video game company built to unleash the creative freedom of developers, bring innovation and artistry to players through an all-new IP. So 2 things with this. I do want to say, like, it's kind of like a two-sided coin in the situation, right? Because I never really want people to feel like, oh, you were part of a thing I liked, so the next thing you do, I'm automatically gonna love. It's gonna be just as good. I'm holding it to the same standard. Like, this needs to be the same thing, or it's guaranteed, or whatever. But on the flip side of that, I do think it's totally valid to be excited that someone who, worked on a project that you loved and made something really cool is making something new, and to be interested in that new thing based on their previous history. I think really the balance is just in tempering those expectations a little bit and knowing that, like, these games are made on teams, and it does still come down to that team, and a team is always more than one person. But again, y'all know I got a soft spot for new studios and new IPs. Bring on the new, bring on the independent stuff, bring on the talks of creative vision and the artistry and all that. It just always gets me excited. It's a lot of the same speak, like the more and more we go through these episodes where people are announcing new studios, the language is always the same. And I think one of those reasons is, well, one, humans tend to veer into cliche, and 2, everyone's chasing that creative freedom. Everyone wants to make the games they're passionate about and make money doing it, and like give gamers these really incredible experiences and these things they've always wanted to do. Like, I think that's just kind of where everyone sort of comes from on these points. And I hope that it is seen through in a really cool way. So, here's to looking forward to new details on that IP and seeing what the studio comes up with. And speaking of being excited for what studios come up with, Remedy signs a co-publishing and development agreement with 505 Games for a multiplayer spin-off game of the award-winning Control. And this comes from the investor website sort of PR release statement, which says Remedy Entertainment has signed an agreement with 505 Games under which Remedy and 505 Games will co-publish and develop a new 4-player cooperative PvE game codenamed Condor, which also Condor is like, I'm not a fan of that codename. It sounds super cheesy, but let's continue with the story. Condor is a spin-off of Control and will be available on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. So hit you with that next-gen exclusive. Definitely worth noting. And PC. Then they go on to talk about the budget. Like, Condor's initial development budget amounts to 25 million euros. And then it's just like a little bit of PR speak before closing it out. But there's also more info on Remedy's website as well, in which the game director of Control, Michael Kasurian, hopefully I'm not mispronouncing that, writes this. Control is first and foremost a world, a place for multitudes of stories, events, and characters, a place where unexpected, strange, and extraordinary things occur. We kicked it off with Jesse's entry into the oldest house, but there is more to this world. Oh, so much more. And Project Condor will be an expression of that. I love multiplayer games. In the glorious 90s, yes, I'm a true 90s kid, me and my 3 friends of mine hooked up our PCs into a local network. We were about to have the first LAN of our lives. I was excited to try out multiplayer with a little shareware game called Doom. When we finally managed to get everything up and running, we fired up a co-op session and tackled E1M1 together, and it was a blast. The familiar world felt so different when you entered it together with your friends. It changed everything. In my professional career, I have focused almost solely on single-player experiences. Making the world revolve around one player allows an incomparable power fantasy, a total immersion of being somewhere else, anyone else. But there's another side to games, a social, collective experience which you share with other people, your friends. And there's something about that sharing that can elevate it into an experience that is impossible to achieve alone. Yes, Remedy as a studio has made single-player games for over 20 years, but we are also avid fans of multiplayer games. I remember us having company-wide Battlefield 1942 sessions when we were working on Max Payne 2. We even got a small clan running. We were terrible, but it was the fun we had together that mattered. There are worlds and experiences you can access collectively with your friends, and they can shine as brightly as any single-player experience does. We get that there's going to be skepticism about multiplayer, but I believe we can create shared experiences without compromising the unique DNA of who we are or the stories we want to tell. Yes, we need to rethink our angles, our techniques, our mindset, but we see it as an exciting challenge. What would a Remedy multiplayer game look like? The Vanguard team has done awesome progress on that front already, and the possibilities there are extremely exciting. Both games will be different examples of how you can collectively experience our worlds. We are approaching this with a mix of excitement and respect. We want to create something that is engaging, yet familiar, something any of our fans can jump into and feel at home together. But as said, Control is more than one location, one character, or story. We have more, something ambitious. As today's announcement stated, quote, have outlined high-level collaboration teams to further expand the Control franchise with a bigger budget Control game. I unfortunately cannot go into more detail than that, but suffice to say, I'm extremely excited for the future of the Control franchise. Building games takes years. Establishing the right partnerships is crucial in order to form the right foundation, both financially, creatively, and from a technical standpoint. Rest assured we want to build on the very foundation of Control and the success it had, thanks to you. Which reminds me, many of you have asked for official Control merchandise. Come August, just in time for the 2nd anniversary of Control, you will be able to finally get that. Stay tuned. It is going to be a long time before we show off these projects. I'm going back to the lab for a while, but don't worry, there are other Remedy experiences coming from our studio that I know you will love. Okay, tell me why, though, the merch is one of the most exciting elements of it to me, because I am absolutely a Control stan. I loved this game. It was my game of the year it came out. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's to die for. The controls are, oh my god, the puns. It controls amazingly. I hate that that's a pun because the name of the game is Control. And the story and world is like super enticing and like weird and intriguing. And it's just straight up fun to play too is the thing. So it just hits on so many levels. And I just absolutely adore it. If you haven't played it, please go play it. So yeah, I really love this post because it feels very much like a quick heart-to-heart with players saying, hey, I know you guys are like, I don't know about you doing multiplayer, but no, think of it as something exciting. Imagine what we could do if we've done so many great things with these single-player experiences. Give us this new space to work in, and we're going to give you something amazing. And I'm like, I trust you. I'm going to just go to the edge of the gaming world with this studio because yeah, I've had a fantastic time with Control and I'm so excited for the future of Remedy, and there's so much more stuff coming out. And yeah, I'm excited for this. I do know that with multiplayer, I think there's always like a little bit of I feel like especially lately, like like side eye to it, almost like, oh, maybe you're just trying to like make money off of this or it's a money grab and less so like your own creative vision. But I think just talking about the idea of Control as a franchise and what it looks like and sort of building out these stories, I do think it's a world that's perfect for that kind of thing because of the way it's set up. So I'm in on this. I'm down for it. Let's go. And while some stories are just beginning in games, others are coming to a bit of an end. There will be no more DLC for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate after the second Fighters Pass, Sakurai confirms. This comes over from Wesleyan Poole at Eurogamer, who writes, Smash Bros. Ultimate will see its final DLC character release later this year. In a video showing off the latest DLC character, Sakurai said the final character to be released as part of Fighters Pass Volume 2 will be Ultimate's last. Up until now, we've created all sorts of fighters and stages, Sakurai said. Gathering all of these games, new and old, and compiling them into a single product is a task that has meant a lot to me. But finally, the next DLC fighter will be the last one. There won't be any more after that. And it's funny because with Nintendo, there's always like that conspiracy hat that's on things. So it's like, what could he mean when he says this is absolutely the last one? Do we think there's more? Like, there's always a little bit of that conversation that happens. I'm going to take this at face value. Like, okay, we're done with Smash Bros. Ultimate DLC. The question then becomes, you know, what's next for the future of the franchise? What do we, if they're not going to continue to support this game via DLC packs and new characters, when are they going to do a new game? My guess is it'll be a while. I mean, Smash Ultimate, it has a lot in it. It's a beefy game, and I think they can just chill and have that there for a while. It was also confirmed that Sakurai is like not retiring or anything like that, as you know, covered by Famitsu and translated by a couple places, including IGN, which is referred to in this Eurogamer article as well. But I do think, you know, that paranoia of like, oh, maybe it's not the end, even though you said it's the end, comes from like moments like when Splatoon's infamous final Splatfest that then was followed by so many Splatfests. Now, granted, that's way less of a lift than like dropping new characters, so I am more inclined to like take this at face value and it's like, okay, the DLC is done. But stuff like that is why people always end up holding out this weird hope for things. So Smash, it's over. It's done. We're going to get the final character, and it'll be really interesting to see who it is. Like, how I'm expecting them to go out with a bang, but it's like, how exactly are they going to do that? I don't know, but I'm kind of excited to see it, even though I'm not, you know, in tune with like Smash, and it's not a game I play like super regularly. But yeah, we'll see how they close this chapter of this great game. Moving on to game events, releases, and updates. The Ghost of Tsushima's Director's Cut is coming to PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 on August 20th. In this news story, Jin travels to Iki Island to investigate rumors of a Mongol presence, but soon he finds himself caught up in events with deeply personal stakes that will force him to relive some traumatic moments from his past. We'll have more to share about the story of Iki soon, but today we can confirm that beyond a whole new story and new characters, this new island also features tons of new content, including brand new environments to explore, new armor for Jin as well as his horse, new minigames, new techniques, new enemy types, and much more. There are even new animals to pet. On both platforms, Director's Cut will offer new trophies to unlock for the new Iki content. So again, this is going to be on PS4 and PS5, but PlayStation 5 players will have access to a few new additional features, including Japanese lip sync, thanks to the PS5's ability to render cinematics in real time. It will also take advantage of haptic feedback and adaptive triggers. There'll also be enhancements to 3D audio on PS5, as well as drastically improved load times, 4K resolution options, and frame rates targeting 60 FPS. You'll be able to transfer over your save, and if you are a brand new player, that new content of Iki Island will unlock in the beginning of Act 2. Alongside the Director's Cut, anyone who already owns Ghost will be able to download a patch containing some new updates, which includes some new accessibility options for alternate controller layouts, as well as the option to enable a target lock-on during combat, and the option to hide your quiver during gameplay. And finally, Ghost of Tsushima Legends will be getting free updates. Those are just come at no additional charge. It's already just going to be something that's going to be happening. And it includes an all-new mode. And here is the pricing breakdown. If you already own Ghost on PS4, you can pre-order an upgrade to the Director's Cut for $19.99. If you already have the Director's Cut on PS4, you'll be able to upgrade to the Director's Cut on PS5 for an additional $9.99. So it's like if you have a PS4 and then later you get a PS5 and you're like, okay, now I want the PS5 version of this Director's Cut. And then lastly, you can just upgrade directly from the Ghost of Tsushima PS4 to the Director's Cut on PS5 for $30, $29.99. So that's for people that, oh, I got it on PS4, I have a PS5 now already ready to go, so I'm gonna get just the Director's Cut with the enhancements and all that for $29.99. Some key things I really want to highlight here. This, I feel like, sets the tone for what we can expect from these Director's Cuts. I think also, since this comes off of or after the announcement of the Death Stranding Director's Cut, there is a little bit of precedent for a couple things. One, like PS5 upgrades and integration, specifically with the DualSense and the bells and whistles the PS5 has, like 3D audio and all of that stuff. Plus also pricing, where you won't have to just buy straight up a new SKU entirely. You can just pay to upgrade if you already own the game. And again, that's a little bit more of an assumption. That's not what they said here, but I feel like that's kind of them setting the tone for that. And I do think this is a little bit of a Trojan horse that has a negative connotation, but it kind of feels like, you know, PlayStation caught a lot of flack for making you pay for upgrades to like the PS5 versions of games and stuff, and kind of packaging alongside DLC makes it so much more appealing because it's like, oh, I'm not really paying for the upgrade, I'm paying for the DLC, and I'm having to get the PS5 version, which costs a little bit more because of the upgrade. But it makes it so much more of an appealing like package to pay for, and it feels like, oh, I'm not getting ripped off here. I'm getting like DLC, and this is kind of what DLC normally costs anyway. Like that $20-$30 mark is not totally off base for what DLC costs. And now you're not really going to see, you know, people complaining about like the $10 markup, I think, as much. I'm sure this will be people that will say like that DLC isn't worth it for them or whatever, but you're always going to have those conversations floating around. For me personally, I wasn't in love with Ghost. I think it's a good game, maybe even a great game, but I feel like it's a little bit basic in some ways, and I'm not personally like thrilled to like go back or do more. So, you know, we'll see if I end up spending any time with this, but it's not something that inherently has me excited in the way that I am excited for the Death Stranding one, because I missed that game and it'll give me a reason to finally go and play it and see, you know, whether or not I like it. And lastly, we have the For the Free section, starting with Xbox games with gold. And here are the games we got. We got Planet Alpha, which is available July 1st to the 31st. Survive a strange planet filled with danger and mystery. Marooned and alone, venture across the beautiful foreign land and unlock its many hidden secrets. With relentless enemies pursuing you, harness the power of night and day in your fight to stay alive in this alien world. Rock of Ages 3, Make and Break, that's available from July 16th to August 15th. The pitch is this: jump into a sprawling, gut-busting story featuring bizarre and absurd takes on legendary characters. Design, build, and share your custom levels with your friends in this Monty Python-esque tower defense and arcade game. Got Conquer Live and Reloaded, available July 1st to the 15th. Back with a hangover and a heavy dose of attitude, play gaming's notorious squirrel, Conquer, through a raunchy world full of twisted characters, innuendos, and outrageous movie parodies. And we got Midway Arcade Origins, available July 16th to 31st. With more than 30 timeless entries from the golden age of arcade gaming, relive your childhood or discover classic games for the first time, such as Defender, Gauntlet, Rampart, and more. No quarters needed to play. And those are your games with gold for July. Honestly, it's a weak month. I ain't gonna front. It's a weak month. And your July PlayStation Plus games are A Plague Tale: Innocence, Call of Duty Black Ops 4, WWE 2K Battlegrounds. Please note that A Plague Tale is for PS5 only, which also means it's the PlayStation 5 version of the game with 4K native resolution, targeted at 60 FPS higher, highly improved visuals, and fast loading. In A Plague Tale, follow the tale of young Amicia and her little brother Hugo in a heart-trending journey through the darkest hours of history, hunted by Inquisition soldiers and surrounded by unstoppable swarms of rats. Amicia and Hugo will come to know and trust each other as they struggle to survive against overwhelming odds. They will fight to find purpose in this brutal, unforgiving world. This is a game that was a little bit of like a sleeper hit. I mean, I feel like it's known enough to like, hey, it's on, you know, PlayStation Plus, right? But it's one of those games that like a lot of people missed, including myself. I hate to admit it, but I did not play this when it first came out. But everyone I know that played it spoke so highly of it and said they really liked it. So I'm excited to play this one on PlayStation Plus. Call of Duty, it's Call of Duty. Y'all already know what it is, including that series iconic multiplayer experience, pitting players against each other worldwide. Second is the fan favorite Zombies experience, letting you and friends battle the undead. Last but not least is Blackout, an intense large map mode inspired by Battle Royale. Blackout brings together characters, locations, weapons, and gear from across the series in an all-out survival combat, all with a unique Black Ops twist. And then WWE 2K Battlegrounds. The world of WWE is your battleground with over-the-top arcade action as your favorite WWE superstars and legends battle in interactive environments around the world. Play through a new story mode while unlocking unique characters and battlegrounds. Compete using special abilities and power-ups in match types like Steel Cage, Royal Rumble, and more. Compete in online tournaments or stake your claim as king of the battleground against players from around the world. Plus, battle it out in local multiplayer and dominate your friends. And all of these games are available July 6th. And those are all the stories we have this week. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tap the bell. And for listening on podcast services, be sure to subscribe and leave a review if possible because it helps the show a whole lot. And as always, a huge thanks to my patrons over on Patreon. You too can join at patreon.com/Gameonysus with rewards as low as the $1 tier all the way up to the $25 tier. And as always, I will see y'all here next time. Bye.